You're listening to Cinemajaw, the greatest movies podcast ever, recorded on location from Cinemajaw Studios in Chicago. My name is Matt Kay. With me is
Ride the Movie Guy, and sitting beside us is Filmy and Phil.
Hello.
This week on Cinemajaw, Matt, we come of age in an unconventional way this week on Cinemajaw. Our top 5 movies, coming-of-age movies, that are unconventional. Not your traditional stuff like, give me a traditional one, Matt.
a traditional coming-of-age movie.
Stand By Me.
Pretty
There
in
you
Pink.
go.
Pretty
Stand
in
By
Pink.
Me. We're not talking those. We're talking something a little bit different. Maybe a genre film, a horror film, something out there, but it's also a coming-of-age movie.
Yeah. Or it could be a standard that was unconventional in its time, Ryan.
We'll see where you go.
Yeah.
We're doing this in honor of a new movie opening up on Shudder. It's on Shudder now as we speak, and a guest who is returning for the 3rd time on Cinemajaw.
And it's an honor, yeah. Jennifer Reeder, writer-director, she's going to be joining us again. Always a pleasure to talk to Jennifer.
Yes, Jennifer's new movie, Perpetrator, out on Shudder. It stars Alicia Silverstone, among others. We'll be talking to Jennifer about that. Besides that, in honor of Perpetrator, you know, if it's a Jennifer Reeder movie, there's going to be some blood. And this one has a lot of blood. So I thought it'd be a good time to play blood movie trivia.
Ooh, I like
yourself versus Jennifer.
Okay.
Think of movies with blood in the title.
Blood in the title.
Okay.
All right.
That's what I went with blood.
Okay.
Like it?
Yes.
And it is September already, the 9th month of the year. That means a new theme. We say goodbye to Seth Rogen. And this month we looked at it, a movie we're both looking forward to, A Haunting in Venice.
Right. The
And-
new Agatha Christie mystery.
Yes, one of the stars in the movie is none other than Michelle Yeoh. September is Michelle Yeoh month here on Cinemajaw.
Let's go rescue your silly raccoon.
The silly raccoon. You hear it, Matt?
I heard it, yeah. I'm not a fan of these sound effects. Maybe we should just get like Sylvester Stallone shouting "Yo." Yo! That'd be funny.
Lastly, we do have a review at the tail end of last week. We said, what should we talk about next week? And you mentioned,
Doing an international film.
yes. And so we have a review of
The Cow Who Sang a Song into the Future. I think movie titles are getting too long. I like the way Jennifer Reeder does it. One word.
Bam, Perpetrator.
Bam.
Let's kick things off with a Michelle Yeoh fact.
Yes. We love Michelle Yeoh. What are the first words that come to everyone's mind when they say Michelle Yeoh?
I mean, if I'm being
Awesome.
totally honest, I still think about Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon.
Badass, right?
A total badass.
Badass, and that's where we're starting this month. So Michelle Yeoh has starred in several films overseas, but her Hollywood career began with a James Bond film. She was in Tomorrow Never Dies in 1997.
Yeah. Pierce
she-
Brosnan.
Yes, Pierce Brosnan one. She played Wai Lin. And Bronson was super impressed and even called her a female James Bond in reference to her badassery and combat abilities. This is what's shocking to me. You have a Michelle Yeoh in your presence, and she had asked the director Roger Spottiswoode to perform her own stunts, and Spottiswoode was like, no. He considered it too dangerous, which is bullshit. Nonetheless, Michelle Yeoh did perform all of her own fighting scenes. While maybe not the stunts, she still did the fighting scenes. And I think we've learned something in the past. This was 1997. So over 20 years of having Michelle Yeoh around, we're like, no. She can do anything. She's
She
incredible.
can do it, yes.
Agreed. I even loved the fight scenes in Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Oh, God, yeah.
They were fantastic.
Yeah. The butt plug comes to mind immediately.
Let the girl fight, you know? We love Michelle Yeoh. We'll be celebrating her all month here on Cinemajaw.
It's going to be a good month, Ryan.
And speaking of a celebration, Matt, as we mentioned, we had Jennifer Reeder on twice before. She came on to talk about Knives and Skin. She came on when Night's End came out. She also has directed VHS 94, one of the segments there. Her new film, Perpetrator, is out on Shudder. Jennifer Reeder, welcome back to Cinemajaw.
Oh, thank you for having me. I will come back every anytime you ask me.
That's awesome.
I
Thank
sure
you.
hope so, because the films are only going to get bigger and bigger here. So we're going to hold you to that, Jennifer.
That's fine.
Good.
So Perpetrator has been a long time coming here. I know you've been working on it a long time, but even before we hit record, you mentioned this premiered in Berlin. When was that? In February of this year?
Yeah, so February of this year, the world premiere for Perpetrator was at the Berlin Film Festival. which this is the fourth film I've premiered there. So that's, kind of my stomping grounds. And I think that for a film like this, it also felt, kind of special to launch it out of a European film festival, which has not historically embraced genre films.
Yeah.
I mean, I really didn't know what to expect. So it has world premiere at Berlin, and then its North American premiere at Tribeca in June in New York.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and it's kind of like, had a bunch of other, screenings in between, and yeah, lands on Shudder September 1st, as well as having a sort of a theatrical run at the IFC Center.
You said something
on September 1st.
You said something really interesting just before we hit record about Vidiot's, the store in L.A., and that you got to curate a shelf. They projected the Perpetrator, and they're also a video store, old school style, and you curated a shelf of films that inspired Perpetrator. You don't have to give me the whole list, but I'm just very curious. What were a few of those?
Cronenberg's Scanners.
Yeah.
Alfred Hitchcock's Rebecca.
Okay.
American Psycho.
Wow.
Promising Young Woman. Possession.
Yeah.
Cat People, the 80s iteration of Cat People. Ooh. And The Hunger. I mean, from 1983, The Hunger, which I adore. So those were sort of like some big ones, with some other ones in there. But that was really cool to be able to have a little shelf in the Vidiot's store where people could, I don't know, discover something that they forgot that they loved, or discover something brand new.
Yeah. Some of those are among my favorites. American Psycho in particular. I love that movie. Before we go further, we should probably talk about Perpetrator and the elevator pitch. Tell us about the film, what it's about, the view from 20,000 feet.
For the jawheads.
So I think of Perpetrator as, a nuanced, provocative, coming of age, shapeshifter story where our protagonist, Johnny Baptiste, inherits a very special set of skills on her 18th birthday, which might also be seen as a kind of curse, I suppose. She inherits a kind of supercharged empathy, the ability to
feel,
absorb, to sort of like feel someone else's feelings. Honestly, to the point where she could look like someone else, and kind of use that back on them. The film ends when she has just begun to, figure out what she can do exactly. So we sort of meet her in that time when she's like a brand new pony with like wobbly superhero legs.
Yeah, it's almost like that's what I was going to say. It's almost a superhero origin in a way.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I mean, I was always intending it, intending that it would end, there. So hopefully, an audience wants more. And honestly, I didn't. It wasn't until I was reading initial reviews or having press conversations that I learned that I had made a very, very bloody film. Like, I didn't really set out to make a really bloody film. I just set out to make an authentic film. And not unlike my other films, it's got I don't know, it's just got some good sharp turns and maybe some unexpected moments, and some authenticity and queerness, and lots of people of color, and I don't know.
Sure.
It feels like it's still. I feel like Perpetrator is the kind of goth cousin of Knives and Skin. So if Knives and Skin is like this, like radiating ball of neon pink, Perpetrator is like the grumpy goth, uh, the goth under a black parasol, and yet they love each other without
Unconditionally.
hesitation.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well-
Though they may not admit it, right?
Right. No, I think they admit it.
Yeah.
Not to each other, maybe not to anybody else.
Right.
They admit it to each other. There's secrets. My films have secrets.
I couldn't get out to the Music Box Theater, but for the screener that you sent over, I went into I got a little screening room. Lights down, watched it on the big screen, surround sound, had a beer, maybe something a little extra, and I enjoyed the hell out of this on a Friday night. So hats off to you. There's a scene in this movie when Johnny turns 18. She goes to live with her aunt, who's played by Alicia Silverstone, and she gets a cake made for her. And the cake has, let me just say, a special ingredient. An idea like that, does that pop into your head before you're even writing the movie and you think of a way like this would be something that you want to put into the film? Or as you're writing the movie, you come up with this idea to have this special ingredient cake in there?
Well, I mean, I wanted the this power to be inherited no matter what, on her 18th birthday. And, I mean, whether, it's not often very magical, but we all know that we inherit things from our family. Sometimes awesome, sometimes not awesome. And yet I wanted to have, like a little boost with the cake. Some might recall in Knives and Skin, there's also like a very like memorable cake moment when Lisa Harper, who's Carolyn Harper's mother, has gotten Carol, after we find out that Carolyn Harper is dead, she takes her ice cream cake out of the freezer and it's melted all over the table. So I'm not actually a big fan of sweets. I would rather have like olives or chips, but for my films, I really like scenes with cakes that are like unruly cakes, the cakes that are not behaving very cake-like. And even Hildy says that, Alicia Silverstone as Hildy says, it would have happened without the cake. That's just like fuel for the fire. And visually I wanted to have a cake that was, kind of bleeding and activated also.
It was awesome.
That is a great shot. Yeah, I love it when she holds up the knife and great. One
and
thing.
I knew that,
oh, go ahead.
I knew that I would just say like quickly that like, but I also knew that I wanted the cake to be significant in the final scene where there's a sense that perhaps even though the other girls at that table, not to spoil too much, are not blood related to Hildy or Johnny, that that there's like some power being passed through that cake to this like pack of girls, and
a sisterhood.
A sisterhood, 100%. Yeah.
One thing I noticed that I'm trying to think, I was like racking my brain if you had done this in any of your other films. There's a moment where Johnny is talking, or she's studying, she's near the mirror and she's reading about mirror neurons, right? That's a tiny touch of science fiction that you threw in. Not to say that mirror neurons aren't real, but you sort of explain, or perhaps explain, some of Hildy's powers, trying to root it to science, or at least that's what I took away from it. That's new. Was that conscious, or did that just come in because of the nature of her powers being with the extreme empathy?
No, I wanted to suggest that. I mean, so in the world, like when I realized that I wanted her to have like this supercharged empathy, I started, researching people who consider themselves empaths in the same way that, there are people who consider themselves psychics or clairvoyants, or, they have telepathy or telekinesis or whatever. And I don't have any of that, by the way. I really wish I did. But so I started just, doing some research around the science behind some of these more kind of paranormal or um, pseudoscience abilities potentially, and that the sense of like mirror neurons came up, and I thought, oh gosh, this could be really
It's perfect.
perfect. And
Hmm.
I'll tell you something, that was a scene that like was in, then it got pulled out, then it got put back in, then it got pulled out because they were test audiences who were sort of like, I don't care if it's real. Like I want to believe it. And then then somebody else would say, oh, I like that, there's that you could actually imagine that this is it's tied to science.
It
And
grounds it a little bit. In
yeah,
yeah.
and honestly, and I mean, I I am someone who believes it. I mean, I believe that. I believe that there is a way that we, as kind of activated beings, have the potential at least to connect,
Hmm.
to other activated beings. I've never said those two sentences together. That's whole sentence together, which
I know
makes me
exactly
sound,
what you mean. There's
yeah.
something we can tap into, right?
Yes,
And,
because it's like we care about each other. I mean, like, right? There's a reason that there are people who we care about unconditionally, and that can't just be logic, because some of those people that we care about unconditionally are like jerks, and
hmm.
still we're kind of like, oh, how would you do anything for that person? And I don't know. So that felt like, and she's a teenager who's just like, what in the whole wide world is happening to me? Like maybe I can ground it in logic, even if it's just for myself.
Well, and it pulls a through line also with the whole like mirroring of her bloody nose and another character at the same time, and yeah, I really enjoyed the scene. I'm glad it stayed in the final cut.
Mhm.
So
Because, and exactly what you just said, I wanted I mean, I like the idea of synchronicity. I mean, I come to filmmaking with a very robust dance background. Maybe I didn't mention this the other times that I talked to you all, but I was a ballet dancer for a long, long time.
Hmm.
Very serious ballet dancer. I still have the bun to prove it. Um, and if you're in the core, if you're not a principal dancer, if you're in the core and not a soloist, it's all about synchronicity,
Hmm.
and all you're doing is like you are synchronizing with the music, you're synchronizing with like the other dancers. And in my life right now, I have no interest in synchronizing with anybody. I want to be like standout, God bless.
Hmm.
But I also have so much like kind of speaking of blood memory of, being in with my, being with another a big group of dancers. And in the dance studios, it's a mirror. You are looking at a mirror,
Yeah.
so that you all know, like, where, like, we're all gonna do this thing together, and let's all, and I don't know, like, it's at the end of the day, the performance where you see this group of, 30 dancers, um, I don't know, acting like swans or whatever, uh, it's it's magical, it's beautiful, and it's still that sense of synchronizing, um, that is yeah, it's very productive for me.
nice. The another plot line that I wanted to discuss is that girls go missing, and
Mhm.
Johnny is going to find these missing girls. It seemed that it's a commentary on the common trope of the horror films where girls go missing
Girls
down.
go missing all the time.
Right.
Yeah.
So was that a conscious decision to sort of comment on the normal horror trope that we see time and time again?
Oh, for sure. I mean, it goes back to even Knives and Skin before Knives and Skin. I mean, Knives and Skin is all about a missing girl.
Hmm.
And then, there was mentions of missing girls even in my shorts leading up to Knives and Skin. And I'm just not done with it because I just don't think that, because I think that actually missing girls have become more complicated. Now there's like trans women who are missing all the time. There are sex workers who are missing all the time. Like indigenous women who are missing all the time. And what has become so um, deep in real life is this sense of like who gets to be found,
Hmm.
right? There's lots of women, who go missing, and some of them are considered so disposable or unremarkable that they don't get found. And then others have a whole, dateline or 48 hours or
Right. An episode on
bare,
unsolved mysteries or something.
yeah,
Yeah.
about them, or there's and a whole social media presence, and that's not to diminish. I mean, they're all missing people should be found. But we still live in a culture where, um, if you are underrepresented, marginalized, living on the fringe on a level, um, as even a female identified or trans identified, it's like good luck if you go missing.
Right.
And so I wanted to uh, present that, in a different way than I did with Knives and Skin and with the other projects that I did. And I mean, as a um, you know cis white woman, that could feel like, well, what business do I have doing that? But
Hmm.
I am a mom, and I am committed to social justice, and I'm a human on this planet that feels like nobody should go missing and not be, found. Like justice is real. So the missing girl trope in this one, was different. And yet also I would just say this really quickly that, the missing girls in Perpetrator, I didn't want them to be sex trafficked. I just thought like that's like so like sex trafficking is fucking awful. I wouldn't want to say like sex trafficking. So
Right.
So
that's so
cliche.
that's so 2020, like that's not how I feel at all. But I was like, oh, I can get more allegorical. And this film is very allegorical,
Yes.
so the missing girls at some point, the character Aviva says, without spoiling it, or maybe I'm spoiling it, I don't care, it's like we're a chop shop, we're being sold for parts. And, that idea came from listening to, maybe it was a Radio Lab, or maybe it was like a general NPR story about parents of boys, like adolescent boys who were trying to procure synthetic growth hormone
Oh yeah,
through kind of
sure.
back channels because they didn't think that their boys were big enough when they were 12 or 13. It was just like so disgusting. And,
Mm.
as the mother of three boy presenting boys, cis boys, boy presenting boys, like it never, and they're not giant, like it never occurred to me that like my boys weren't big enough. It's like absurd. And the
Hmm.
sense that it's like the flip of how I um champion kind of girl power, on that. I was like, oh my gosh, there's this whole other side of people who judge how like masculinity in a very, 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 very destructive way. But it got me thinking about, well, what other kind of things would people start back channeling? And I know that in real life, uh, there are, placentas that get turned into
Oh yeah.
pills or facial creams.
Hmm.
And so I was like, well, let's roll that out to the most extreme. Like, people say things, and even Electra at some point says like, oh, about Evelyn. Oh, Evelyn had the most beautiful eyes. Everybody wanted her eyes, which is, of course, like things that people say. But like what if someone wanted Evelyn's eyes so much
In a jar.
that
Yeah.
correct, or yeah, exactly.
I read in an interview you said that you wrote the part for Alicia Silverstone. When did you become a fan of Alicia Silverstone? Was it Clueless in the 90s and the Aerosmith videos like us?
Yes, of course.
We all fell
Right.
in love
I mean,
with her,
yeah,
right?
that's the answer.
Yes.
It-
Yes, and I had been thinking about her honestly for Knives and Skin. I thought like maybe she could be really interesting to play Lisa Harper, the mother of the missing girl. And then we didn't have the budget for it. We didn't have the right casting director kind of reach out to her, blah blah blah. And so when her name came up again for Perpetrator, and then all between Knives and Skin and Perpetrator, she had done Killing of a Sacred Deer,
Yeah.
incredible part in Killing of a Sacred Deer, and The Lodge. So you know, like in both of those films, both genre films, both weird films, especially Killing of a Sacred Deer. I was like, okay, Silverstone. Cher Horowitz is, she's down to get weird, and I wrote her a letter and I told her that I was really interested in working with her because the kind of the sort of meta story was about her being the mentor to an iconic teenager as the matriarch of a shape-shifting family, and she in real life was someone who we met as this iconic teenager, and I wanted to pattern her after, speaking of The Hunger, the Catherine Deneuve character in The Hunger. I wanted to pattern her after these very cool Hitchcockian blondes, Tippi Hedren, Kim Novak. We've never seen her like that. And, she in her real life is like kooky and campy. Like her BFF is Christian Siriano, who she brought to the Tribeca premiere, which I like don't fangirl over many people. And I was just like, oh my God, Kristen, like, how do I look? And he was like, you look pretty good. We're just like, okay, like I'll take it. And she, between the letter and then my conversation with her, it was like a no-brainer. She was like, yeah, of course I'm going to do it. I love her. I will make many, many more films with her.
It's good to hear.
Yeah, that is good to hear.
Going through this process, we have other filmmakers on, but for someone who wrote and directed it, obviously pre-production, you're filming, post-production, and then rolling the film out. What's your favorite part of the process, and what's your least favorite part of the process?
Ooh.
My favorite part is editing. Like I really like the post-production, because everything's shot and you sit in a room and you kind of like, it's like doing a puzzle or something. It feels very calm and there's so many options and I don't know, it feels good. I don't mind pre-production because some of that's also like ideas. Like you're going to talk to the production designer who's got her whole office set up and you're looking at the color palettes for different spaces or talking to the wardrobe people about costumes. That feels creative. The main part, production, garbage.
Really?
Oh my God.
Not what I thought she was going to say.
Yeah, that's actually probably a fairly uncommon answer, I would imagine. So the actual production, when you're on set and stuff,
the worst.
That's what you don't like, huh?
I hate it.
Huh.
I hate it. I hate it. And I'll tell you why. Because, I mean, these are days which could be like 12 to 14-hour days where me, as the writer and the director, I am like laser focused. I don't have any downtime. I really don't have any downtime. At any moment, anything could go wrong and shut down production. That's happened before.
Sure.
There's always your first AD like breathing over your shoulder, like, we got to move on. We got to move on. We got to move on. And I mean, and your actors are like, oh, can I do another take? Or then you send your actors away to get hair and makeup, and then they're running late, and you're waiting for them to come, and you're just like, the clock is ticking because we're like over time already. I mean, it's like,
It's a lot.
It's
Sure.
it's like
sure.
a
It's
ticking
so
time bomb.
much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, it's a ticking time bomb for like 24 days straight. All you do is like, I drive to set and I'm like, oh my God, I'm so thankful to make a movie again. And then the minute that you clock in, it is like Die Hard,
It's crazy.
you
Dodging
know?
bullets. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly. Until,
I've been on a set. I
oh my God,
concur.
until you wrap and then you just drive home and are like, oh my God, I just hope that Dunkin' Donuts is hiring because I don't think I'm ever going to make a film again.
Well, let me tell you, this is my favorite Jennifer Reeder film. I love them all, but I really love Perpetrator.
Thanks.
It is out on Shudder. Do check it out, Jawheads, and shoot us a tweet. We'll share it with Jennifer in X, whatever you're calling it, or email us, feedback@cinemajaw.com. We'll pass that feedback on to Jennifer. I'm sure tomorrow, I mean, we're recording this, Jawheads, the day before it premieres on Shudder.
Right.
Tomorrow, what's your plan? Are you going to be checking social media, seeing how everybody reacts to it, that kind of stuff?
Well, I'll tell you something. I mean, I have been kind of checking social media a bunch like this whole past 2 weeks. Normally, I don't care about Rotten Tomatoes, but I know that, Shudder does. And I would love nothing more than for this weird, the kind of like the weirdest film that I've ever made with also the biggest budget, the biggest visible cast. I mean, I want this weirdo to be certified fresh.
Oh, hell yeah.
Like,
It's
I
going
want
to be.
that.
It's going to be.
No, but we had a great review from the New York Times, which was awesome. And, we're waiting for a couple of other bigger ones, but even coming out of Berlin, like, Hollywood Reporter, Deadline, it's like there was some great variety. I mean, there's some like really great responses to it. And it's not lost on me that this is a film that, I made again from my DNA and my soul. And, going back to the Vidiots screening last Friday, a week from yesterday, David Bruckner, who directed the latest iteration of Hellraiser, who's a friend of mine, came out to the screening. And I think I melted his face. He was just like, oh God, that was awesome. Like, how did you convince people to, give you money to make that? It's amazing. It's so great. So, I just was like, oh my gosh, how did I blow David Bruckner's mind? And I think that, I don't know, I think he was jealous, like having made some big studio films.
Sure.
And but I'm ready to make studio films, but I'm going to make them on my terms. So I had to talk David Bruckner through like a lesson in like how to convince the studio to let you be as weird as you want to be.
To convince Jawheads more, there's a quote floating out there either from IndieWire or somebody that said it's a mix between a David Lynch and a John Hughes film.
That is absolutely correct.
And it is totally correct. And I think that quote should pique everybody's interest to check Perpetrator out on
I'd throw
Shudder.
just a drop of Lloyd Kaufman in there too, just
Oh yeah, sure.
like some of the high school scenes. But man,
Yeah.
great stuff.
Congratulations again, Jennifer, on Perpetrator. So we went back and forth. Jennifer actually gives us the idea. We say on the email, do you have any ideas for a top 5? She says, maybe Shapeshifters. Unbelievably, we've done top 5 Shapeshifters.
We did that with Adil Rafai of Hello from the Magic Tavern.
Yeah. So we had to call an audible, and we're doing our top 5 unconventional coming-of-age films. Jennifer, you're getting us started with your number 5 pick.
Okay. I've got my number 5, but I had to, because I've been here for the 3rd time, I had to do a Hall of Fame.
All right.
One that's just like a Hall of Fame, not even honorable mention, like Hall of Fame. It's the best. It just has to have a Hall of Fame, which is the 1976 Brian De Palma iteration of Carrie.
Yeah.
It's a Hall of Fame pick.
Oh God, yeah.
So
my kid is actually going to be doing the decorations for one of the school dances, and it's the Friday the 13th in October, and I'm like, dude, it's a horror theme. You got to have a bucket hanging above the stage that's like dripping like digital light blood, and I'm like, you have to do this.
Yes, and somebody has to come in like a gorgeous pink prom gown just covered in
Drenched.
blood. Like that's my so anyway, so Carrie is just Hall of Fame. Okay, so but okay, so my number 5 is from 1994, directed by Peter Jackson, starring Kate Winslet and Melanie Linsky, Heavenly Creatures.
Good pick here.
Yes.
Not on my list. I did not think about it, but this is a great pick. This was Kate Winslet before Titanic. We didn't know who Kate Winslet was.
Yeah. Yeah. And
A
Melanie
breakout.
Linsky well before, Yellow Jackets. Yeah. Fairy tale, matricide, allegorical. They were both very, very young. And yeah, that's such a good one, in my opinion.
It really is. It's a good
And Peter
one.
Jackson, before, all of the
The Lord of the Rings stuff.
Yeah.
100%. I was going to say something more that was like
He was weird back in the day. Like, I've been a fan since like Meet the
trolls and
Feebles.
stuff. But,
Yeah.
yeah.
Good stuff. All right, swinging it to my number 5. I'm going with a 2013 movie that you introduced me to, Rye the Movie Guy. Although I won't give you too much credit. It is also an international film from Stockholm, Sweden. We Are the Best, about a trio of punk rock.
So good.
Such a great movie about the exuberance of youth and optimism in the face of constant failure. And the whole point of the movie is you can fail at the end and still somehow call it a win. And it's great. It's punk rock. Even though there's not a lick of good music in the whole movie, I think that's
bite your tongue.
No, I think that's on purpose. I think that's what makes it great. There's love, there's loss, there's jealousy, friendship, all of it. Great coming of age movie that I think not enough people have seen. We Are the Best! 2013. Check it out.
Yeah. I was a huge fan of
Big
that movie.
fan.
And yeah, the ending of that film always puts
Top
a smile
notch.
on my face. Absolutely. My number 5 pick actually was a film I skipped. I just thought it was garbage. And then everybody started to say it was becoming a cult classic. And I went ahead and I checked it out just like 2 years ago. Came out in 2009. Jennifer's Body.
You've been a fan of this for a while.
2
dude.
years ago,
Really?
I finally saw the movie.
Okay.
So good.
It's
So
with
good.
Megan Fox,
Right.
Yeah,
and
right.
a demon possesses her, and I think a lot of people probably the initial take when it came out was like, oh, it's a Megan Fox movie. Look,
Sure.
they're just trying to sell, her sexuality and this, and that's about it. It didn't have anything under the blankets, if you will. But
Yeah.
no, I mean, this is a feminist horror movie. Revenge. Female empowerment. It was great. And when I finally went and saw it, I'm glad it's got a cult audience. I think there's probably still a lot of people listening to this podcast that haven't seen it, and it's well worth the spin. Jennifer's Body.
Yeah. Karen Kusama. Like,
Yes.
I believe, which I think set off a big, like this wave of people recognizing that like women, in horror, women making horror is don't sleep on women making horror.
Right.
No doubt.
It was actually when I saw Destroyer with Nicole Kidman, which
Oh,
she
I love
directed.
that one.
I love that movie, and she also did The Invitation, which was one of my
yeah,
favorites.
I love that one.
It was
Yeah.
that because we were talking about those movies, and I realized these were all directed by the same person. I'm like, well, I'm going to go see
Right.
Jennifer's Body, and I'm glad I did. So,
Way to go, Ryan. You've caught up.
yep, that was my number 5 pick. Into our 4s we go. What do you got, Jennifer?
Ooh. From 2008, the Swedish iteration. Let's just like really hit that home. Let the Right One In.
Yes.
Hell yeah.
Like a beautiful vampire story, young people,
Very young. right?
where like vampirism is tough. It's like it's not necessarily a power. It's like this crave and in a way that is also parallels, I don't know, adolescence, but the way that the Swedish one in particular shot is that stark, cold Sweden, the blood
Yeah.
against the snow, these beautiful shots. I don't know. It's a very restrained film. It's also a violent film, but yeah, Let the Right One In.
The brutalist architecture. Oh, yeah. And the cat scene. Oh, my God.
Yeah.
Love that movie. Also on my list, but I've got enough that I'll throw a substitute in. But at number 4, I'm going way back to 1988. And honestly, this shocked me because I really think of this as a 90s movie, probably because I saw it for the first time in the 90s. Heathers. Such a weird... Christian Slater at the time and Winona Ryder, fresh off of successes each, and we're kind of like the teenage it people of Hollywood in that moment. And then they make a film like Heathers, which is so subversive and violent and disturbing in a lot of ways, and kind of unfortunately predicted a lot about American culture, especially teenage culture, and the things that teens would have to deal with 20, 30 years into the future. But what a weird, odd coming-of-age story Heathers is. I like where it ends. I think I could sit down and watch it today and still be just as entertained as I was in the early 90s with it.
Yeah, and I mean, I couldn't agree more. And I didn't put it on my list because it's a film that gets compared to like my films a lot, not in a bad way, like that kind of glib, deadpan, dark humor.
I can see that.
I mean, I love it. And when that film came out, I was a teenager working at a movie theater that screened that film. And it became just like an instant cult classic where it screened for like 12 weeks. And I was like, oh God, like we're screening Heathers again. Like I became like a Heather as a Jennifer, which to me, like there were so many Jennifers in my class. I was like, it's not Heathers, it's Jennifers. But yeah, I couldn't agree more. Good job.
Thank you.
I actually thought this might be your number 1. I left it off my list because I thought,
Really?
Matt's probably going to have Heathers at number 1.
Well,
all right.
it's definitely a worthy number 1.
My number 4 pick came out in 2014, directed by David Robert Mitchell, and it is It Follows. And
That's a good one, dude.
Allegory for teenagers entering their
sexuality. Sure.
Yes, they're about to be sexually active, and it follows whoever you actually have intercourse with then has this curse of seeing.
It's like the tape in the ring, except
right.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
You only can get it though if you actually go through So what's great though is you're the only person that can see this person walking towards you. So it really worked on a great level cinematically. That trope is just perfect, having just the person who's cursed being able to see what they think is this force walking towards them. I've seen it now 2 or 3 times. There's an excellent scene in a swimming pool. I know we did our swimming pool scenes one time, and it popped up on this list. It's
I've
great.
Seen that, yeah. Why haven't they made a sequel?
Who knows? But I'm okay with no sequel to it.
Okay.
I'm fine. Not everything needs a sequel. You don't see a Knives and Skins sequel.
Okay. You're right. You're right.
Exactly. Thank you. Yeah, no, It Follows is brilliant.
Yes, It Follows, my number 4 pick. Do check that one out, Jawheads. Into our 3s we go.
So this one is the little girl who lives down the lane. It's from 1976.
Jodie Foster?
Jodie Foster
Yes.
and
Yeah.
Martin Sheen. Okay. So in 1976, Jodie Foster made Taxi Driver and Bugsy Malone, which is a weird adult story with all little kids. And she made The Little Girl Who Lives Down the Lane, which is based on a novel. She plays a girl who is living by herself, like maybe she's 11 or 12. Martin Sheen is a super creepy pedophile, really, who comes to visit her. And at some point you realize that like she's living by herself because her dad is dead in the cellar. I mean, it's shot like almost like a play, like it's just this one location. It's the weirdest. I mean, honestly, this film, I've talked to my manager and my agent about like redoing it because it's just so clunky and awkward as a film, but the content is so rich and weird. yeah. I mean, I don't even know how to. If you haven't seen it, you got to find it
Yep. So it's
immediately.
I haven't seen it. It comes up a lot when we're doing research.
yeah. So I have seen it. Like we're celebrating Michelle Yeoh this month. We did Jodie Foster. When was that? Maybe a year or so ago. And I went down the rabbit hole and I tried to see some movies that I hadn't seen of hers. And this popped up and I watched it. And since that time, I've described it almost this way, Jennifer. Like, I'm shocked to hear that you think that it could still be made today, because I've said, like, I don't think they could make this kind of material anymore, where it's a 12-year-old girl with a dead dad in the cellar and a pedophile at the door. That's the plot of the movie. Maybe it works, but
I don't know.
I could do it.
if there's somebody that can pull it off, it's Jennifer
I can
Reeder.
do it. I can do it. I've pitched it to to people, and they're like, wait, who? What? Like, what is this film? I'm like, yeah, it exists. I want to redo it.
It is
So
a strange
maybe
one.
maybe the next time we talk, it'll be about my iteration of The Little Girl Who Lives Down the Lane.
I would definitely check that out. I'd jump all over that.
Do check that one out. Big fan.
All right. Swinging it back to me at number 3, I have a movie based on a graphic novel, 2015's The Diary of a Teenage Girl.
Oh, good one. Okay.
Cute.
Kristen Wiig as the absolutely, like, the least likely Mother of the Year candidate ever. She's just kind of like this terrible mom. Her daughter winds up sleeping with her boyfriend and basically goes on this, like, sexual self-discovery odyssey. And it's not nearly as lurid as I'm making it sound. It's actually a pretty heartfelt movie with some lurid scenes in it. I don't know. I like the graphic novel. It's just very honest and frank and direct with it. It's a good movie. And it's a really odd turn for Kristen Wiig. Like, I don't think she's got another role like this. This is it. This is the one to see. And I don't remember, I was trying to look up the name of the
Well, Bill Pauly, is that who's in it?
the main character. I'll take your word for it, because I couldn't find it and I don't remember, but she was fantastic and I haven't seen her much since. So I hope she comes back, pops up, because she was really good. That's my number 3.
It's a good pick, Matt.
Thanks, man.
Yeah. See, it doesn't all...
It's a very weird movie. It's an unconventional coming of age.
It is. I'm glad you went with these kind of like odd picks, like We Are the Best and Diary of a Teenage Girl, because I went so horror when I was thinking of these. Mine were all strictly horror, much like my number 3 pick from 2016. Director Julie Ducournau gave us her first feature, Raw.
Oh yeah. That's a good one.
Yes.
And
That was almost on my list.
I was going to say,
But I'll tell you why later. But yeah.
I was going to say, this has got to be a Jennifer Reeder type movie, right? But for jawheads that have not seen it, it involves a young girl, Justine, who is a vegetarian, and she is going to a veterinarian school. And coming of age movie, she tries meat for the very first time. And
It awakens something.
it awakens something, yes. And it really depicts feminine pleasure through body horror, and it's a gruesome movie in a way, but it is a sexy movie in a way, I guess, too, depending on how you look at it. I remember just being shocked that this was a feature debut. I was stunned because it's a great film. And then obviously she came back with Titan, which was my movie of the year when that came out.
Yeah.
So I can't wait to see what she does next. But Raw, if you get a chance to see it, excellent. I knew, Jennifer, you had to be a fan.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. I'm a fan too. Anytime there's cannibalism, count me in.
You're in.
I'm in.
That was my number 3 pick. Into our 2s we go.
Well, I mean, you set it up. Titan, Julie Ducournau is my number 2.
Nice.
And I thought about Raw, obviously I love that one, but Titan is like just a juggernaut. And even though I'm going to just like preface this, like we meet that main protagonist as a kid, and then we meet her again as, I mean, she could be 17, 18, 19 years old. So that's why I was like coming of age-ish.
Mm-hmm.
And then she disguises herself as a,
A missing
you
boy.
know, a missing boy who's also a teenager. So I was like, oh yeah, this is coming of age. Titane for me is just like a masterpiece.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it I'm as a consumer of films, it's almost never the case that I am uh taken aback. Like, wait, what? Wait, what just happened? Like, what has happened?
Yeah.
Yes.
And how? And yet, with a lot of um, like genuine emotionality involved with that.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, oh my God, it's like gorgeous and complex and
You're talking about the car scene, I'm assuming. Yes.
well, I mean, let's start with we could start with the car scene. We could start with the first scene, then the car scene, then the stabbing, then another stabbing, then I mean, I don't want to.
The whole thing.
There's
Yeah.
the whole thing. My God, it's like till the very end. It never. It's like it's this unrelenting.
It really is. Yeah.
And so yeah,
Ryan's
so,
movie of the year.
It was, and I even said then, I think this is still a good analogy. I said it reminds me very much of Tarantino when he made Reservoir Dogs, which was really good, and then he stepped up his game to Pulp Fiction, and it was like, oh my God, this guy's a master. That's how I feel about what she's done here. I think Raw is
Yeah.
great, but when
Yeah.
Titane came out, it was like, oh my God, like you said, Jennifer, it's a masterpiece. And
Yeah.
Sits proudly on my shelf.
you still haven't watched it.
I still
though.
haven't watched it.
No, it's really it's unrelenting. It's gorgeous. It's weird. It is unexpected. It's complicated. It's emotional. I mean, I don't know. Again, I don't know how she got that made. It won at Cannes.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, yeah. So my number 2 is Titane.
It's a
by
great one.
Julia Ducournau.
It's a great one.
Oh, I mean, I do have to get off my ass and give it a spin already. My number 2 was Let the Right One In. So I'm going to call a quick audible and say, would you guys consider Boys Don't Cry a coming of age
Oh,
story?
totally.
Oh,
Yes,
100.
I would.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's my audible.
That's your substitute. Okay.
That's my sub.
Hilary
I mean,
Swank.
yeah, Hilary Swank. Obviously, a big breakout for her. Terrible, horrible, tragic, true story, or at least based on one. Seek it out. That's my substitute. What do you got, Ryan?
My number 2.
Yeah.
It's a weird one, and it's not necessarily straight horror. So did my
You really
due
stuck with
diligence here.
horror.
This one's not straight up horror. 2001, Donnie Darko.
Oh, sure. That's a horror movie.
Oh, incredible. Yes.
Incredible film.
Oh, for sure.
A coming of age movie that shows the complexity of coming of age. There's so many things.
Or not coming of age, as it were.
and another film that you can look at and dissect, and there's going to be things that mean something to some viewers that other viewers aren't going to pick up on, but they may latch on to something else. It's one of those kind of films that, like great art, multiple interpretations are going to be out there. But when watching it, we can all agree we're watching something great. And it was Jake Gyllenhaal, young Jake Gyllenhaal, before we knew he was going to be necessarily a
Big,
major
strapping, handsome man that he is
star.
today. Yeah.
just a teenage Gyllenhaal in this one, and I watched it maybe 5 years ago, and I remembered, wow, this is also a masterpiece. It's a great one.
I think I had to talk you into it.
I think I saw it before you.
I don't
Yeah.
know. 5 years ago, we were doing The Jaw, dude.
Directed by Richard Kelly. It's a great one. So Donnie Darko, if you haven't seen it, Jawheads, get weird some Friday night and put it on. It's a good one.
Well, here's a little, speaking of that, I mean, literally probably 2 days ago, Jenna Malone, who's in Donnie Darko, started following me on Instagram.
Ooh.
I don't know why, but
We know why, Jennifer.
Yeah,
I
we know
posted
why.
something
You're
about
Jennifer Reader.
I posted something about like Perpetrator, and she commented, she's like, I can't wait to see this. So I was like, oh my goodness. Okay. And my 15-year-old, over this, recently I also had him watch Donnie Darko, and it still is fresh. Like he really loved it.
It's good to hear.
Yeah, I got to show it to
It's
my
got some
kids.
legs. Yeah.
Mhm.
And that
Yeah,
song in
he
there.
really he loved it. Yeah.
Good.
It's awesome. So here it is, our heavy hitters, our number one unconventional coming of age movie. Jennifer Reeder, what do you got?
Okay. Whew. Okay, so this is a film a lot of people have not seen. The film version of it is called Audrey Rose. The book version is The Reincarnation of Audrey Rose. It's from 1977. It stars Anthony Hopkins and Marsha Mason. We are introduced to a family, a mom and dad, and like a girl who is maybe 11. Anthony Hopkins, a 77 iteration of Anthony Hopkins, seems to be kind of like stalking the family. And eventually he confronts the family and says, my daughter died a while ago, and I actually think that your daughter is the reincarnation of my daughter.
Yeah.
I love
Which
it
is
already.
freaky enough. And every time that he starts to come around, and his daughter was named Audrey Rose. I can't remember what the other daughter's named. But every time that Anthony Hopkins comes around, she starts to kind of like freak out, fugue, whatever. And so the family is at some point convinced that their daughter is the reincarnation of like this guy's dead daughter. And then he takes them to court to sue for custody of this
Oh my goodness.
daughter because like she is the reincarnation of his. I mean, it's so weird. Like it just takes these crazy turns, and it's got that 70s kind of like the camera sort of like spins and zooms or whatever. It's just like it's such an intense story, and it's one that I am also obsessed about trying to remake, and I've been in conversations with the people who own it, so I will just put that out into the world. I want to manifest it that I want to remake Audrey Rose, partially because like remaking it kind of like now and thinking about even debates around women's reproductive rights.
Oh yeah,
or,
right.
Or like who owns bodies, or custody stuff, or it could be very, very rich. I mean, when it was made originally, it was like it's really B movie, midnight movie. God bless the midnight movies. But yeah, Audrey Rose. Gosh, my gosh.
I'm writing this one
Please,
down. I got to check it out. Yeah.
Check it out.
Great number one.
Phil, can we see if that's streaming anywhere? Throw that in the fish tank.
All right. My number one. This was the first movie I saw when I moved to Chicago, and I saw it at Piper's Alley. Remember the great Piper's Alley?
I wouldn't call it great. It was okay.
Well, here's the thing. It was an art house theater, and I came from a suburb of New York City where there were no art house.
Well, then it's great in that
Right.
case, right?
Ghost World,
Oh yeah, of course. Great, amazing.
based on the Daniel Close graphic novel, which I am a fan of, although I came to it after the movie. I just kind of fell in love with Thora Birch's character, Enid. There's something, like, I knew these girls. I knew them in high school. Like, obviously, I mean, the girls in my high school that I was friends with were very much like Enid, and I don't remember Scarlett Johansson's character's name, but Scarlett Johansson is in this too, by the way. In one of her super early roles. I believe she was
Right.
like 16 or 17 when they filmed this.
And Steve Buscemi, right?
And Steve Buscemi.
Yes.
But I had friends like this who were some of the like borderline sociopathic, how just cruel and indifferent they were. But this is the story of someone who's cruel and indifferent as a defense mechanism, who comes to understand the ramifications of their actions and matures before our very eyes. And it's a great movie. I've watched it again recently. I can't remember why we watched it. We watched it on for Cinemajaw or something. Maybe it was Scarlett Johansson we were talking about or something. And it holds up. It holds up 20 years later, 20 plus years later. Great movie. My number one. Great coming of age.
Awesome.
Ghost World.
It's a good pick.
Love it. I love it.
My number one pick, it's kind of a cheat. I went with unconventional filmmaking here, is the tie-in. But the film itself, the plot line is quite conventional as far as a coming-of-age movie. I went with Richard Linklater's Boyhood.
Okay.
Which
that counts.
Yeah, beautiful.
Right? He filmed the thing over 14 years.
Yeah, very special.
And taking a couple of days each year and filming Ethan Hawke, Patricia Arquette, and Al Coltrane. And basically we get to see somebody actually grow up during those key years from, roughly 5 or 6 all the way to 18 years old as an actual young man. And to actually see that unfold cinematically is quite powerful because I think, we all obviously love coming of age movies, and who doesn't? They're very emotional a lot of times, but when you actually see somebody grow up on screen right in front of your eyes, just added to that power.
Well, this is a cinematic achievement, right? And it's very easy to dismiss and say it's a gimmick. It's not, all right? It's a cinematic achievement. And what a risk Linklater took when casting. Obviously, Patricia Arquette and Ethan Hawke, very reliable. But 15 years, what if somebody gets hit by a truck? You never know. And this kid, what if he grows up and he's ugly? Or what if he decides he hates acting? Anything can happen.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's a triumph that this movie exists.
Yes.
And that they got a good narrative out of it.
100% agree. And it won Patricia Arquette a much owed Oscar because I love Patricia Arquette. So
Yeah, me too.
it was great to see. Honorable mentions before we go to break.
I can go rapid fire.
Rapid fire. What do you got?
All right, here we go. Rapid fire. Turning Red. Unconventional
Oh,
animation.
that was sweet. That was very cute. Yep.
Big. Kind of weird. Pan's Labyrinth, which definitely could have been on the list. Fast Times at Ridgemont High. I say it's a little unconventional at its time. Didn't put it on my list. Fish Tank.
Also an honorable of mine.
Yes, me too.
Taika,
Me too.
Taika Waititi's Boy. And Hereditary. In fact, really, both of Ari Aster's first 2 films, I would say, are coming of age, at least in some kind of way. But Hereditary more. It's the son's coming of age. Of course, he doesn't quite make it, but he tries.
You mentioned all of mine on the list. The only one not mentioned was Me, Earl, and the Dying Girl.
Sure.
Oh, that's a nice one.
And I thought that was unconventional to some degree.
It is. This, I mean, if it's conventional, I don't think you're doing it right. So.
All right, Jawheads, if we missed your favorite unconventional coming-of-age movie, shoot us an email, feedback@cinemajaw.com. We are going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we have a review plus some movie trivia. Stick with us.
Let's all go to the lobby.
It's Michelle Yeoh month. First clip. I know everybody's thinking we're going to play Everything Everywhere All at Once. You're wrong, Jawheads. This is a time I can bring up a movie I haven't talked about here on Cinema Jaw, but did check out, entitled Boss Level. It stars none other than Frank Grillo, Mel Gibson, Naomi Watts, and Michelle Yeoh. Michelle has a very small role in the film, but it is an entertaining one as she trains Frank Grillo's character in martial arts. Check it out, Jawheads.
I need to learn how to fight with a sword.
There is something intriguing about you that I like. I'm flying home to Shanghai in the morning. I would only have a day.
I think we can get a lot done in a day. I'm a beginner, but I'm a quick learner.
It is the one who wields it that makes it a weapon, Roy. That sword is no more an extension of you than a set of car keys.
I've had some training, but I'm willing to work hard.
In lesser hands, that Jian blade is just a flimsy piece of forged steel. But within the most determined grip and under the keenest eyes, it becomes a weapon of annihilation.
Sparkling drinks, it awful a dandy, 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 dandy.
And we are back on Cinemajaw, hanging out with Jennifer Reeder, director of Perpetrator, which is out on Shudder right now. Jawheads, give it a spin. It is absolutely fantastic. I did want to ask you, Jennifer, what is one great movie that came out in 2023, this year, that you saw that you would recommend to people?
Infinity Pool.
Yeah.
I liked
I mean, maybe not great, but just like, I loved Possessor. I loved Possessor. And look, I always want to be, like poked and challenged. I don't go into a theater even if I'm watching it, in my home. I don't know. Like I like to provoke people as a filmmaker, and I like filmmakers who are
Provocative.
100%. I would also say if someone to like wind it back to like 1918, a film that sticks with me, which I think, even though it was, I don't think that it won any Academy Awards, is The Sound of Metal, which I think is like
Yeah.
extraordinary. I mean, to introduce a protagonist whose life is pulled out from under him, and I love Riz Ahmed as an actor. Oh my God, I love Riz Ahmed. But to have a story where a protagonist's life is pulled out from under him, and all he wants to do is to figure out how to get back to his life before this horrible thing happens. And by the end of the film, he's had this kind of existential moment where, he realizes that, I don't know, maybe like we, like little phoenixes, can rise up and just profoundly blossom from what we thought we could never survive. And I just think that, I mean, even though when I spoke to you last, about Night's End, we were not through COVID, and we're not, still through COVID, and
Right. Yeah.
we're
Crazy.
living in a world where, there's just this horrible war on, wokeness, which for me, wokeness is about being a human being, and not just sympathizing, but empathizing. I just like, the world is not better, it's worse. And yet, I still believe that art and culture will save us. Cinema will save us, like we have to still tell our stories, and you all, have to still do this, where you are talking about the stories that exist in the world.
Yeah.
So,
Well,
I don't
thank
think I don't think that's naive. I mean, I genuinely, believe it. So I'm gonna, when the strikes are over, and there's justice, I've got two new projects lined up. So like, throw me the ball, coach. I am ready to go. So
Nice.
hopefully, and in a little bit longer, after the other side of yay for pre-production, bad production, yay for post-production. I will see you all again with another project.
That's awesome. Good recommendation. Before we get to our review of The Cow Singing into the Future, Matt, and play some trivia, let's open up the fish tank. We threw one item in there, and I know Phil dug around to find out when Jennifer Reeder was on Cinemajaw in the past. Let's open up that fish tank.
Wait a moment! It's fish! Isn't it?
DC! Wake up! No, Pat, it's a giant glass bowl. Hey, get some fish folk.
Who's coming with me besides Flipper? Here.
That's a Sicilian message. It means Luca Brasi sleeps with the fishes.
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
Thank you so much. It is so great to be out of the fish tank this week, and I did. And there was another question that we had thrown in here. How many times has Jennifer been on? That was like a covert kind of operation. It wasn't something that was discussed, but Ryan and I have like a mental wavelength where I can pick up on these kinds of things.
Mirror neurons.
Yes, exactly. And this is going to be Jennifer's number 3. Number 3 for Jennifer. And we're so happy to have her for this third time. The first one was in 2020 and in 2022. She was on February 17th of 2020 for episode number 458. Nothing bad was going to happen to us then.
No, nothing.
And then she was on March 14th last year for episode 554.
So about every 100 episodes, we have Jennifer Reeder on.
That's a fine guest for us to have on every 100 episodes.
This is 624. So we're 25 episodes early. Jennifer's just dropping movies too fast, I think, you know?
Or not fast enough, depending on how you look at it.
Yeah,
right? We could have Jennifer on every 3. Our second question in here is Audrey Rose streaming. Listen, guys, I love every single time that I can provide the Jawheads, Ryan, Jennifer, Matt, everybody here with me. It's not going where you think it's going. But okay. It is on Amazon Prime. I don't have a negative. It is on Amazon Prime, included in your Prime subscription. So you're given the Bezos bucks.
Isn't it weird how we can now consider that free? You know,
that's exactly what Jeff wants.
No,
it is free on Tubi and Pluto if you're willing to sit through ads. And just for the record, our second place trophy still goes to this organization. Okay, the younger sibling Canopy does have Audrey Rose. Canopy being if your local library doesn't like you as much as if they gave you Hoopla, but they're not being negligent.
The Canadian library?
Yeah, something like
Canopy.
That. Yeah. But I mean, CPS does both.
Right.
So,
okay.
Not that you... Well, yeah, okay, you know what? It's not on Hoopla, so maybe this is a time where you need both.
But you can get this. It's out there. Go watch it,
check it
Jawheads.
out.
Me too.
Yeah. Was that everything, Phil?
That's all we got.
All right, jump back in there.
You bet.
Ryan, a cow singing a song into the future. Jawheads, as promised, an international film this week, premiering at the 2022 Sundance Film Festival, where it generated a decent amount of buzz, comes the oddly titled The Cow Who Sang a Song into the Future from Chile. An exercise in surrealism, family dynamics, magical realism, life and death, this is not a straightforward film. But does the cow wander too far from the meadow? Ryan and I were utterly curious to find out.
Qué alegría más grande, ¿eh? Tenerlos aquí después de tanto tiempo juntos de nuevo. Tu mamá volvió.
¿De qué estás hablando? Mamá está muerta. Se murió hace mucho tiempo.
If you don't speak Spanish and didn't understand that clip, it's okay. Even with subtitles, there's a lot left up to interpretation by writer-director Francisca Alegria, and I'm going to apologize right now for my crass American accent. The film opens with a shot of what looks like magic mushrooms to me, which perfectly sets the tone and lets you know that you are in for a trip. After lingering in nature for a good long while, the camera focuses on a river where a young woman who seems to have drowned emerges to breathe again. We follow this woman who causes strange electrical interferences wherever she goes as she walks barefoot into town and runs into her husband, who has a medical episode at the site of his dead wife. The husband, who runs a dairy farm with his son, calls his daughter, a doctor, to come home, and soon the whole family, including the daughter's 2 kids, must deal with the specter of a lost mother returned. That's about where the magical realism kicks in, Rye. Each character in the movie relates to the reanimated mother in a very unique way. Some are angry or scared, and some feel a kindred spirit with her for various reasons. This movie takes its time, and I found that to be a bit of a mixed bag. Some scenes are agonizingly slow, so much so that I had to double check that I hadn't accidentally turned the viewing speed down on my streaming service. That being said, the themes and the visuals are so nourishing and rich that sometimes I wanted to just curl up and hug the movie like a plush animal. And don't get me wrong, this isn't a cute film per se, but there is a warmth to it. Yes, heavy themes of suicide, death in general, abuse cycles, sexual identity, pollution, climate change, and plain old navel gazing are abundant. But the cow approaches them from new angles and weaves a fairy tale, and in the end, I felt that it was worth the wait. This could have been a lot tighter, and I think that would have made the movie better, but that's simply my objective preference. There are not too many overt mistakes in this dreamy and layered onion of a movie. I say, sing its praises.
Oh, I like the singing that is going on for the cow who sang a song into the future. I'll say this. I had this written down because I believe it was Brian Tallarico saw it at Sundance and a couple others. And I'll write it down in the journal and say, I'll check this one out. When you mentioned last week you wanted a foreign film, I said, well, let's see if anything is streaming interesting. I saw this on Hoopla. Did you watch it on Hoopla?
YouTube.
Okay. Oh, it's on YouTube.
Yeah.
Oh, but you paid for it.
I paid for it.
Okay. It is free on Hoopla, so you guys know.
It's $3.99.
I'm just saying. I'm letting the jawheads know it's free. Is that okay?
All right. No, that's fine. But you had to deal with commercials, right?
No. Hoopla, no commercials.
Oh.
So it's free on Hoopla. I watched it there, and I'm right with you. It is a slow burn, so be prepared for that.
Yes,
But
incredibly slow burn.
I didn't feel it that slow by any means because I felt the imagery.
It is dreamy,
right? That held me over. I was in the screening room. I was like, all right, this is a pretty cool movie. I was digging the whole way that it looked, and it was interesting enough with this lady coming back from the dead. And
that was very fascinating.
It was like, all right, I was hooked. So it is a slow burn. Be prepared for that. The themes that I picked up on here. And this is a bit of a stretch, so just hear me out here. I got that the film deals with grief and how we all cope with it differently. And we see that the different family members cope with this person's loss and now her return in a different manner. But also there's a theme in here that humans are a danger to the natural world. We get this.
Yeah.
We get this imagery at the very beginning of all these dead fish, and it's a pretty powerful shot. It's all on the shoreline, and they talk about how the river was polluted. Later, there's cows that have died in the field that are diseased, and we get this theme.
Spoiler alert.
We get this theme that humans are a danger to the natural world. And
bees.
The line that I'm drawing here, yes, the bees also. The line I'm drawing here is that humans and society is a danger to people who are in a possible state of mind of possibly committing suicide, like the character, even though it's not 100% sure that it's suicide. So
I think, I hesitate.
It's interpretation.
Yeah. Well, I feel that at some point there is little left up to interpretation.
Okay. So the through line here would be that society not only is endangering animals and the natural world, but it's also endangering other humans.
That's just one of the through lines.
Right. But did you get this also?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so you're right on par with me.
Yeah.
I mean, I at some point, because of those 2 points being, kind of different in a lot of ways. I mean, very seldom is a movie talking about, suicide and killing fish in a river. And somehow this all worked.
And there's a trans woman in this who is being somewhat forced, or at least highly pressured by her mom to present as male.
Mm-hmm.
And that's traumatic.
Correct.
And then they have thoughts of suicide, and that's how they approach her grandmother, who is reanimated from the dead. That's just one more thread to pull on. There's so many more. There's the cows in the field. Talk about, and this is the title of the movie, right? The cow that sang the song Into the Future. They sing a song about motherhood and and how it's to live separate from your kids, because they talk about how come the calves aren't allowed to be with their moms in the dairy? Well, because if the calves drank the milk, we would be out of business.
Mm-hmm.
And the cows are sad because they're not with their children. And you think about the grandmother who was separated from the children, and then the mom who's so dedicated to her work that she's not truly caring for her children in the right way. There's a lot to this film.
There really is. And one of the great things about a song being sung in a foreign language film is you're reading the subtitles. A lot of times if the song's playing, I wouldn't catch all of the
lyrics.
words. But in this case, I'm reading it and I'm like, oh, wow, this is a perfect song, for the meaning of the film. There's a lot going on here. And I think most jawheads, if they're looking for a good foreign film, and this fits in, we're doing, a Perpetrator and talking with Jennifer Reeder, very surreal filmmaker. This is a surreal type film. So that's why this fit well and why I picked this one to be reviewed here. I'd recommend this one overall.
I would too, man. I would totally recommend this movie. I say seek this one out. It is slow. Like, just be ready for that. And if that bothers you, if you're more into dialogue than you are into the visuals, you may not enjoy this as much.
My jaw-dropping moment, I went with two of them. One of them was the opening dead fish, just the way it was photographed.
Yeah, that was startling.
Yeah, it really was. I was like, oh, my goodness, this is... I don't know if I'm ready for this kind of movie.
Yeah.
And then the first time that Magdalena is the character's name who comes back from the dead, the first time that her husband believes that he sees her is when she is standing outside of a store and all the electronics start to turn on. At this point, there's a lot of mystery going on.
We're talking the opening moments of the movie.
Yeah, we're like, what is going on? Why are these devices all of a sudden turning on? Is she an alien? We don't know exactly what's going on. And then that phone call comes where it's like, Dad thinks he saw Mom, and it's like, at that point I was totally in. I was like, all right, I'm along for the ride. So those two scenes really grip me.
My jaw-dropping moment was the cow song, when the mom goes out into the field and listens to the cows sing the song Into the Future, because they do predict the future. What's going to happen with those cows after that scene. That was weird.
Movie poster quote I went with, "The cow has a voice that must be heard to fully be appreciated."
Yeah.
I mean, you got to hear this cow's voice.
You got to hear the cow. I said a South American family acid trip in the best possible way.
2.75 jaws. I dusted off the quarter jaw. 2.75. I could almost go 3 jaws. Talking about it here with you made me appreciate the film a little bit more. That's always a good sign.
That is.
Because sometimes when you watch the movie and, I watch it in my little screening room, and then it's like, well, okay, that was really good. But, boy, talking about it with you all of a sudden, I'm like, yeah, I think it was better than I even thought.
Yeah, man, I'm going to go ahead and give it the 3 jaws. I would give it 4 if it wasn't so glacially, agonizingly slow at certain moments when, yes, it's beautiful, but I know what's going on. Maybe pick up the pace a bit, and this is a 4-star movie. But don't get me wrong, 3 stars, 3 jaws, love it. Seek this one out. It's very special. It's got a lot of things going on. Lots to talk about after this movie.
It really does. The Cow Who Sang a Song Into the Future is available on Hoopla for free, or you can rent it anywhere like YouTube, Google Play, all those places. One of the better foreign films that came out in 2023. Check it out, Jawheads. All right, we like to end all these podcasts with some fun trivia, and in honor of Jennifer Reeder's Perpetrator, which is a bloody good film, we are playing blood movie trivia. Think of movies with blood in the title.
Got it.
All right, blood in the title.
Okay.
Jennifer, you're our guest. You get to choose if you want to go first or let Matt go first. There are steals.
I'll go first. Okay. I'll go first.
Question number 1. They start off easy, so I hope I wrote this an easy one. Here we go.
All right.
Jennifer, Daniel Day-Lewis won an Oscar for playing an oil man in Paul
There Will Be Blood.
There Will Be Blood. In Paul Thomas Anderson's film, There Will Be Blood. 1-0,
I like to actually call that film There Will Be Dudes, because I think there's one woman in that film.
Does not pass the Bechdel test at all.
There will be blood.
1-0, Jennifer. Question 2 over to Matt Cape. Matt, the Coen brothers' first film came out in 1984, and it fits this trivia rather well. Name the movie.
Well, I think that was a subtle clue when you say it fits this trivia rather well. The first Coen brothers.
Mm-hmm.
I know it. I know it. I know this one.
Jennifer knows it.
Pressure's on.
I love this movie.
First Coen brothers. I mean, like the first one I saw was Raising Arizona.
Nope.
So.
Nada.
Bloodwell.
Nope.
Jennifer.
Blood Simple.
That is correct. 2-0, Jennifer. She can open it wide open here on question 3 because it's over to her. Jennifer, this movie, wrapped around a Hallmark holiday, came out in 1981, and a remake came out in 3D in 2009.
Say that again?
Yep.
Yeah.
This movie, wrapped around a Hallmark holiday, came out in 1981. There was a remake of it made in 3D that came out in 2009.
I don't know. Bloody Christmas. Bloody
Dude,
Valentine. I don't know.
Oh, hey, I think you might have.
We're giving it to Jennifer.
Yeah, give it to Jennifer. She
My
got
Bloody
it.
Valentine. My Bloody Valentine.
Oh, okay. Okay.
3-0, Jennifer. Question 4 over to Matt K.
I thought that was a band.
No,
My Bloody
no,
Valentine.
My Bloody Valentine.
It is. No, My Bloody Valentine is a band.
It is
also.
a band, yeah.
Shoegaze.
Thanks. Yeah. Thanks, Jennifer.
Matt, who played Sheriff Will Teasel in the 1982 Stallone film First Blood?
Oh my God, Brian Dennehy.
It was Brian Dennehy.
Well, I wouldn't have gotten that one. Good for you.
3-1, Jennifer. Question 5 is over to her. Jennifer, this 2002 movie called Blood Work starred this actor who also directed the film. 2002 movie called Blood Work starred this actor, and he also directed the movie. So, a actor/director. Blood Work.
Matthew McConaughey.
Mm.
No, I have no idea.
I really don't
I don't know that
either.
film at all. No, nothing. I got nothing.
Actor, director.
2002.
2002.
Andrew McCarthy.
Bo
No,
Burnham.
I don't know. No.
Bo Burnham.
Oh, Burnham.
I got nothing.
Jesus. Clint Eastwood. We were looking for Clint Eastwood.
Oh, okay. Blood Work?
Still 3-1.
Never heard of that one.
Still 3-1. Question 6 is over to Matt K. Matt, which Oscar-winning actor played the lead, Danny Archer, in the 2006 movie Blood Diamond?
DiCaprio.
That was DiCaprio. Yes.
Okay.
It is 3-2. Jennifer can win it right here if she gets this one correct. Question 7 is over to her. Jennifer, the 1967 film In Cold Blood was based on the book of the same name written by who?
Truman Capote.
That is correct. We have a winner. It is 4-2. But the last question, Matt, save some face here.
Okay, all right.
Is this. Who played the blood-drinking vampire Dracula in the 1992 film Bram Stoker's Dracula?
Did you write these backwards? I mean, come on.
I had a tough time coming up with a
Who
all
was
blood
that?
questions.
I know that one. Do you
Gary
know?
Oldman, yeah.
It was Gary Oldman.
Yes, of course. Okay, great.
Jennifer wins
I
this
thought you
one
were,
4-3.
I thought you were
though.
going to go with like Nicolas Cage, Vampire's Kiss.
Oh, that would have been good.
Did you see Renfield, Jennifer?
Yes.
It was great. I mean,
Yeah.
stupid, but fun, right? I loved it.
No, I honestly love. So tomorrow, when, or later today, who knows when, Perpetrator gets dropped onto Shudder. Shudder asked me to, choose like 10 or some Shudder films that I love, and Mandy is on there, which is Nicolas Cage, and I think that like, but it's like Mandy, then I could fast forward to like Pig, which is also really interesting. One of my most favorite teen films, which was not problematic, was like Valley Girl. I could have said that, but it's very expected. It's not unexpected. I love vampire. Yeah, I love Vampire's Kiss. I mean, my God, it's like
Cage
Nicolas
has done some good
Cage's
stuff.
so good, so weird and good. But yeah, Vampire's Kiss. I mean, there's times when to my children, I'm like kind of like, A, B, C,
C,
like,
D.
and they're just like, what are you talking about? I'm like,
Time to show
never
them
mind.
that movie.
Yeah.
Yep. Good
Oh my
stuff.
gosh.
Well, it brings us to the end of a great Jaw. And first and foremost, we got to thank Jennifer Reeder. Congratulations again on Perpetrator. And I hope a lot of Jaw heads and a lot of people out there check this one out.
Always a sincere pleasure.
Been a blast.
No, always. Look, I mean, it's the hometown love, Chicago, Midwest, whatever, like over everything.
Which reminds me, I'm going out to Toronto for the Toronto International Film Festival, and Fozzie has a film.
I know. You got to go see it.
I
Yeah, Fawzia
did.
Mirza
Yep.
has her feature, film debut. and
Yeah,
I'm so
I reached out
happy
to her
for
already because she's been on the podcast, and I said, Fozzie, I'm coming. We're going to see this
love
movie.
it.
So
yeah,
yep.
that's really special. Yeah, so have a great time out there.
Awesome. Thanks again, Jennifer. We also got to thank our editor, our producer, Filmy and Phil.
Thank you so much. As this is officially Michelle Yeoh month and the first day or first episode of September, it's also behooving me that this is coming up so much faster, but I do have the art show Pancakes and Booze at Reggie's in Bridgeport, Chicago, Illinois, September 29th and 30th.
Is there a flyer or some?
Yeah. We keep talking about this. I really do have to get you this link, Matt. Yeah, I will have, if I'm doing this math correctly, and I may alter this and change it a little bit because it might be too much for me to want to deal with, but I think I will actually have 10 pieces there.
Multiples, let's just say.
Minimum of 7 for what I'm bringing. So,
all right.
And if I feel like the gusto in the morning of to pack up 3 more canvases, then...
For the Chicago Jawheads who don't know, Reggie's right off the Cermak stop on the Red Line. So it's right there.
It's on State Street, I believe, South State.
State and Cermak?
Yeah,
Yeah.
been around there.
Yeah.
Love Reggie's.
I do too.
I'm going to be out there supporting Phil.
Free pancakes, too.
I will too.
Free pancakes.
Sold.
Absolutely.
You had me at support and Phil, but
Yes.
throw in free pancakes?
Speaking of supporting and thanking, we want to thank the people who support us, our Patreons.
One day we'll give them all free pancakes.
We just posted an episode.
Yeah.
A retro review.
Indeed.
Of Francis Ha. And
it's up there right now.
It's up there right now for our Patreons. If you want to join us on Patreon, go over to patreon.com/Cinemajaw. We also want to say a way to support the show that costs nothing other than maybe 30 seconds a time.
Or less.
Is leaving us a review wherever you're listening to this podcast. At least a star rating. That always helps as well.
Yeah, 10 seconds probably.
Until next week, I'm Ryan, the movie guy.
I'm Matt Kay. And keep on jawing about the movies.